Okay, this one is recorded directly after today's all about limniads, so still soup, still hot, but at least I'm talking soup, which is good for everyone involved. A quick thank you to the T5 peeps, Bob the Dragon, Data Magnet, Cat Crab Lobster, Dark Machine, Estrella the Dreamer, Messick, Fudic Yol, and Casper Arnholtz. Thank you very much. Anyways, onto the story. Born to Kill, Chapter 2. Joining the other Laguts in the observation room, Harkin saw the other's somber colors. Among her own rank, the pretense of confidence that she had kept up for her troops could be abandoned. She had removed her powdered colors after seeing her reflection in a sample of Terran armor recovered from SDKG-48. Under normal circumstances, there was no need for close inspection of the battle's situation. Trial combat rules did not permit any intervention or instruction from the forces outside orbit. All data would be meticulously logged for future analysis and to determine system royalties and battle salvage rights. Once the battle was over, her own empire and the Klaxian, along with the neutral galactic third parties, would examine the battlefield and negotiate the ratios of ownership for the solar system. All rather routine. However, the size and quantity of the observation teams from all three parties were comically disproportionate to the value of this system. Everyone assembled here wanted to see the 4 Terran troops that were joining the Klaxian regulars. This would be the second deployment of Terran troops in history, and already they had caused an unprecedented and rapid alteration to the carefully balanced system her empire had been using for generations. Including proximity mines with all of her own Legion units was, even in the event of victory, going to cause a huge economic penalty to Elise of the system. She had personally had to justify her request to the Empire's legal team only days prior to entering the system. As a half measure, they permitted only her own Legion to equip them. Harkin was deeply worried this was a mistake, but had expanded all her military clout even to procure 1,000 mines. An audible tone informed her that the other 9 Laguts and pre-battle deployments were almost completed, and the total information would soon be available. Thanks to the shared transponder data, observers would have razor-sharp views of the battle. As instructed, the Empire had deployed 9 legions in a bow-shaped line to engage the Klaxian. Harkin's own legion was behind the center of the bow and had been instructed to reinforce wherever the Terran forces appeared. If they repeated their actions of SDKG-48, they would charge through the line and cause total chaos behind the main engagement. Previously, this had caused panic, and troopers had tried to down the Terrans using a dangerous overload of their pulse rifles. As a consequence, the Klaxian regulars were able to massacre the disarmed Empire troops. This would not happen again. All troops had been instructed to ignore the Terrans and allow Harkin's Legion to engage the Terran until they ran out of ammunition. Experience had taught them that they would then attempt what they called melee. Barbaric but brutally effective tactics that the Empire historians had to brief the military on after consulting records archived in the Galactic Library. It was after that history lesson Harkin came up with the proximity mines. The morality of it was repulsive, the technology crude, but it was the only solution anyone could come up with for such short notice. It was agreed this tactic would only ever be used until a more palatable countermeasure could be found. Another tone signaled total information was online. As expected, the Klaxian had deployed in a staggering line. Due to the bow shape, Empire forces were already at a disadvantage due to their shorter battle line. Both flank legions were prepared for this and had entrenched themselves in a limited pre-battle stage. None of this came as a surprise to anyone in the room, and immediately everyone accessed the Klaxian battle roster and filtered by species. Disaster. The Terrans were not together as they had done previously. They were seemingly randomly sprinkled across the line. Harkin's Centurions would have to break her legion and engage in 4 locations. But without intel she had access to, they had no way to know this. Any hope of ground observers being able to identify the problem in time to organize a response was dashed when all 4 Terran units charged. Harkin had highlighted all 4 of them on her system map. She had seen data from SDKG-48, but the speed was no less shocking to her. 4th Legion hadn't finished charging their rifles before the Terran was inside the meta border of the Legion. Unit lights were blinking out on every data packet received. Harkin opened up the optical probe views of the 4th Legion's grid, and a steady tick of photos showed the shadows of the Terrans blinking between the craters of the moon. Some bright points indicated the Legion troops had already begun overloading their rifles. Futile, but you couldn't blame them. Even from the comfort of orbit, she was starting to miss key data points trying to understand what was happening. A pause to collect herself and remember that she could do nothing to help her troops other than observe and prepare for future battles. She looked at the 2nd, 5th, and 7th Legions grids to seize the same situation unfolding in each. No doubt her own Legion would soon advance on the 5th grid, incorrectly assuming that it had all 4 of these avatars of death. More concerning, if that was even possible, was that the Klaxians were advancing almost unchallenged. As the Legions tried to deal with the carnage amongst their entrenchments, there was no time to fend off the regulars. Over 4% of the 10,000-strong deployment were dead or dying. She had no way of knowing how many had destroyed their own rifles, but the optical map suggested hundreds, if not 1,000. The entrenched 1st and 9th were being totally bypassed as the Klaxons abandoned the formation to rush the center. An hour later, any semblance of order was gone. As Harkin predicted, her own 10th Legion had rushed the 5th's right flank. In a cruel irony, the Terrans appeared to think that this was some sort of critical point in the battle rather than a trap. All 4 of them converged on the grid, literally shattering a path as they went. They had all apparently run out of ammunition in the first 7 minutes of battle. The melee tactics caused even more panic amongst the Empire troops, and pulse rifle overloads could be seen unaided from orbit. The Terrans figured out the proximity mines after one unit set off 3 in a row while stomping on the Legionnaires. Each blast sent the unit a dozen meters in the air with brutal force. The biped could still be seen sitting upright after the last blast seemed to surpass its endurance. Another Terran had come to its aid and after some communication appeared to have discerned how to identify the mines. The 3 remaining Terrans simply stopped engaging 10th Legion units and started throwing other Legion units, or pieces of them, at them. The forces occasionally even set off the mines. There was no way to tell how many Terrans had killed. If pressed, Harkin would estimate 400 to 600 over the course of the battle. In total, less than 900 had survived to the ceasefire. The Klaxians had again swarmed over the disorganized and disarmed troops. As a force multiplier, these Terrans were unprecedented. Harkin had actually tasked one of the optical sensors to look at the Terran habitat crudely attached to the Klaxian transport. These post-battle periods usually involved networking with peers, arms dealers, system trade delegates, and logistics corporations. Network traffic was simply bombarding the Terran habitat. An automatic system was directing all traffic to the appropriate Klaxian contact. These Terrans seemed to have no interest in the galactic trade or politics. In fact, after a shuttle had returned the 4 Terrans deployed, there had been no activity at all from the ugly box attached to the sleek hull of the modified Klaxian transport. A whispered question from the totally grey Legat interrupted her thoughts. "So, what are you going to do, Legat?" All 9 of her peers had huddled around her after she had received a call from the ship's communications officer. The Terran battle barge, as her fleet had started calling the Cursed Tumor, had hailed the 10th Legion's deployment ship directly and requested to speak with its commander. After a flurry of objections and multiple demands that a more senior Empire personnel be selected, the voice of the Terran battle barge had made it abundantly clear that an invitation to Harkin, and only Harkin, was being extended. This was to not be an official diplomatic meeting and no recording device of any kind would be permitted. A Klaxian transport had been dispatched to ferry her over at her convenience. The Klaxian shuttle pilot had curiously informed her that she was to select from a menu. Apparently, she was being offered a choice of meal during her visit. If the list was given was accurate, this Terran ship had a stock of some of the finest foods in her empire. They even claimed to have royal jelly. Harkin had never even been in the same room as royal jelly. "I guess I'll try the jelly and Talvian nectar," Harkin answered, stunned. End of chapter. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.